For every age, there is a time of trial. The rocks faced such a fire before they were the strength beneath our feet. The plants braved vast winds before their roots could give us life. As a sage of considerable years, I have known only one such great ordeal. Yet the hero it created was a champion for all time.
After the success of the Crash Bandicoot series, video game developer Naughty Dog wanted to surpass their previous projects and bring something exciting and innovative for players to enjoy. With a goal in mind, the team set to work, bouncing around ideas until they landed on something they liked. They wanted to create a completely load-free, seamless environment where players could explore without restriction. Their plans were ambitious, but at the time, Naughty Dog couldn't imagine such a thing becoming a reality. As Naughty Dog's co-founder Andy Gavin put it, the PlayStation 1 was held back by its hardware limitations, and was restricted by its low polygon count. There were also challenges with developing a camera that wouldn't leave players feeling nauseated after just a few hours of gaming. And so, reluctantly, the team decided to lock down the viewpoint to improve graphics and focus on more traditional Donkey Kong Country-style action. However, games like Super Mario 64 proved that a good-looking open-world platformer was achievable. When Banjo-Kazooie later released with improved functionality, Naughty Dog became convinced that free-roaming 3D platforming wasn't just possible, it could be great, especially if made for the PS2. And so, with the spirit of Crash Bandicoot at its heart, Naughty Dog envisioned a new IP, a game intended to be bigger and better than what came before. Something which would captivate players for hours, with its smooth integration of gameplay and story elements. The result was Jak and Daxter, the Precursor legacy. When designing Jak, care was taken to give the character a multicultural appearance, so as to broaden his appeal to many age groups and cultures. After Crash's design was changed for Japanese audiences, Naughty Dog sought to homogenise the work which went into creating their characters. The idea was to have one single view of Jak worldwide, so that his appearance didn't need to be tailored for another country outside of the United States. Early designs for Jak had him looking more animalistic with wolf-like features. As the art was revised, the team eventually settled on a humanoid appearance for their protagonist, one which evoked both Western cartoon art styles and Eastern anime. Jak became this tall, fair-skinned, agile character with spiky green blonde hair. He was drawn with a blue tunic, beige pants, with a steel ring in the centre of his chest, held up by leather straps. Together with a metal plate on his left shoulder and iconic goggles, his garments were clearly fashioned to signify his heroic and adventurous spirit. Sticking with the multicultural theme of the character, Naughty Dog decided to call him Jak, a variant of the traditional spelling of the name, which has ties to South Africa. In the Precursor legacy, Jak has no spoken dialogue. Like Crash Bandicoot before him, Naughty Dog chose to make Jak a silent protagonist for the first game. In the early days, the studio had a reputation for creating fun and engaging worlds, and a silent protagonist was perfect for inhabiting such settings. This is because it allowed players to project themselves onto a blank canvas. It offered more immersion to the player as they take the place of the protagonist and feel more involved in the exploration of the world and its characters. Throughout the game, it's actually implied Jak can talk. Aside from the occasional grunt or yell when he falls, there are moments when he tries to speak but gets interrupted by Daxter. What's interesting about a protagonist like Jak is that despite being mute, we can infer what he's thinking from his body language. His enthusiasm to take on any challenge in the face of danger is often seen on his facial expressions. The animations do a great job of showing Jak's fearlessness without the need for words. But what's also neat is how much of the game's humour comes from his stone-faced or blinking reactions to Daxter's comical antics.
Wait a minute! That was Gull? The same Gull who's supposed to change me back? Gull is the guy trying to kill us? I'm doomed.
Jak's proclivity for danger is a huge contrast to Daxter's cowardice and jovial nature. In an interview with creative director Dan Airy, it was said that Jak is the hero you want to be, Daxter is the hero you're afraid you are. Daxter is just a little bit concerned, a little bit afraid, and he would rather take the easy way out. Where Jak shows a keen interest in taking on perilous tasks, Daxter tends to show fear, usually advising against any course of action that could get the duo killed. When he's in a safe environment, he attempts to paint himself in a more favourable light by making up tall tales about his valour, which few people believe. Although Daxter is a foil for Jak, acting as the cowardly sidekick, while Jak is the dependable, headstrong hero, their friendship is the beating heart of the series. In spite of their differences, they have a strong bond. In the beginning of the Precursor legacy, Jak and Daxter sneak off to Misty Island against the wishes of their mentor, Samos Higai. Daxter, who was human at the time, falls into a pool of dark eco before re-emerging as a 2-foot, 10-inch tall otter-weasel hybrid. The pair then go on their first adventure together with the hope of changing Daxter back to human. Along the way, they meet a bunch of wacky characters, carry out odd jobs, fight monsters, and take on Gol and Maya, a couple of maniacs who intend to flood the world with dark eco in order to reshape it to their liking. With help from Samos and his daughter Kira, the protagonists defeat Gol and his sister before discovering the Rift Gate, an ancient artifact said to have been made by mysterious deities known as the Precursors. The first Jak and Daxter game released to universal acclaim, with some reviewers referring to it as a breath of fresh air. The game was praised for its platforming and exciting action-orientated elements, and its success pretty much guaranteed a sequel. It performed so well that it went on to become the 17th best-selling game on the PS2. However, despite this achievement, a tectonic shift was taking place in the industry. Platforming had stopped being as lucrative as it once was. With the rise of popular first-person shooters and games like Grand Theft Auto 3, interest for the platforming genre began to decline. Like many other developers at the time, Naughty Dog couldn't ignore these fundamental changes. All of a sudden, games were coming out pivoted towards photorealism, gritty stories, and a ton of violence. The first Jak and Daxter didn't really have any of that, and so the studio was forced to adapt. With Jak 2, they went in a new direction. After GTA 3 had sold over 6 million copies and generated $250 million in revenue within its first year of release, Naughty Dog sought to borrow from GTA and integrate similar gameplay into their own series. If they were going to compete long term, in their view, Jak and Daxter had to mature. They worked on evolving Jak for a new market, thrusting him into a cruel, dystopian setting. The developers had a difficult task on their hands. They needed to create a dark atmosphere with an edgy character and a mature storyline without losing what made the franchise appealing to audiences to begin with. Following the defeat of Gol and Maya, Jak and Daxter joined Samos and Kira to test out the Rift Rider, a device that is linked to the gate they found in the first game. When Jak activates the device, the gate opens and thousands of creatures begin to flood the world before the group is pulled through the portal. Jak and Daxter become separated from the others and arrive in Haven City, a futuristic metropolitan ruled by the tyrannical Baron Praxis and guarded by the Crimson Guard, an authoritarian police force. Jak is taken into custody by the Baron's right-hand man, Errol. As Daxter runs away, he promises Jak that he'll be back to save him in no time.
Dark eco-injection cycle complete. Bio readings nominal and unchanged.
Nothing. I was informed that this one might be different.
He is surprisingly resistant to your experiments, Baron Praxis. I fear the Dark Warrior program has failed.
You should at least be dead with all the dark eco I pumped into you.
What now? Metalhead armies are pressing their attacks. Without a new weapon, my men cannot hold them off forever.
I will not be remembered as the man who lost this city to those vile creatures. Move forward with the final plan and finish off this thing tonight.
As you wish. I'll be back later.
Ding ding, third floor. Body chains, roach food, torture devices. Hey, buddy, You seen any heroes around here? Whoa! What'd they do to you? Jak, it's me, Daxter! That's a fine hello. I've been crawling around in this place, risking my tail, literally, to save you. I've been looking for you for 2 years! Say something! Just this once!
I'm gonna kill Praxis!
Shh! Right now, we gotta get you out of here. Just let me figure out how to open the security locks for your chair so I can... Or, you can do it. Jak, easy now. Easy, buddy. It's your old pal Daxter, remember?
Daxter?
What the heck was that? Sheesh! Remind me not to piss you off. Come on, tall, dark, and gruesome. We're out of here. I brought you some new threads. Put them on.
At the time of its release, Jak 2 was revolutionary. It took a fun action-adventure platformer and completely tipped it on its head. For 2 years, Jak was put through hell. He was experimented on and pumped with dark eco, which took a heavy toll on his personality. As a result, Jak went from a carefree, optimistic character with a love of adventure to a tortured soul filled with rage and dark powers. Though Jak's fearlessness, drive for adventure, and honesty remained his core traits, his quiet nature developed into a stoic attitude. He has a short temper and is more aggressive. He also has very little patience for people and sometimes will cut others off mid-conversation while injecting sarcasm into his interactions. Of course, the protagonist's personality wasn't the only casualty of Naughty Dog's plans to mature the series. The gameplay was also revamped. The introduction of guns added a greater emphasis on combat, while flying vehicles, hijacked from various NPCs, allowed Jak to traverse the large city. Even though people might look at the gameplay and say the studio just copied the formula from GTA 3, Jak 2 is very much a unique experience in its own right. It still retains some platforming challenges from the previous title, and the game's art style gives it a distinct feel. Back then there was some controversy among fans who preferred the pleasant and colourful ambience of the original. Their issue was that the sequel deviated too much from its roots and lost some of its charm, but personally I really liked the direction the team took with Jak 2. I love the game's atmosphere, and in fact, I'd go as far as to say it's one of my favourite cyberpunk settings that I've seen from any video game to date. When Cyberpunk 2077 was announced, I had high hopes that game would have a similar feel to Jak 2 with modern graphics, but instead what we got was very different. Anyway, despite the criticism received from some fans, I think Naughty Dog managed to make a game that's not only rewarding to play, but also delivers a surprisingly deep story filled with twists and turns.
Finally, you've decided to join us, and you brought the Precursor stone. Good. The boy will now play his final part.
Not this time.
Oh, but this child is such a part of this, such a part of you. Don't you recognize him? The boy is you, Jak. And this place, this is where you began, in the future.
But how?
You were hidden in the past on the hope that you would gain the skills to face me today. But Onin was wrong. Now that you've been altered with dark eco, the stone will never open for you. Your younger self, however, still has the pure gift. He alone can awaken the stone and the Precursor entity which sleeps inside.
This stone is a precursor?
The last Precursor egg. Ma was clever. He covered his tracks well through time, hiding his last egg from me and building the shield and city to defend it. It has been a long siege, but today I will finally feed on the last Precursor life force.
I think you're forgetting one little thing, Metalomaniac. We've got the Precursor Stone.
Not for long.
If you've seen my other videos on this channel, you'll know I'm a sucker for a good time travel story, and I really appreciate how the writers handled that aspect here. At the end of Act 1, Jak and Daxter discover Samos's hut, overgrown, and they realise they have been transported into the future. Though Jak helps the resistance against the Baron and his rule, his motivations in the beginning are purely selfish. He's cold, blunt, and out for revenge against the man who tortured him. However, as the story progresses, we see Jak put his vengeance to one side and become concerned with saving lives, rather than just trying to hurt the Baron. By the time of Praxis's death, Jak appears reserved and displays none of the rage or contempt towards the man he once hated. This, and Jak's pleading words with the Baron's daughter Ashlyn about the safety of the world, shows Jak's growth as he answers to a higher calling. Towards the end of the game, Jak and Daxter attack the Metalhead nest and confront their leader, Core. After an intense battle, Core is defeated. The rest of the group arrives, and the older Samos reveals that Haven City is their home, and that they must now send the younger versions of Samos and Jak back into the past, so that Jak may train and gain the skills needed to achieve what he has accomplished that day. Everything in Jak 2 comes together to produce a story that ends in a satisfying way, and I think Naughty Dog should be commended for that. They managed to deliver something meaningful and exciting, and I really enjoy its scope and breadth of activities available. Jak 3 would release barely a year after Jak 2's launch. Like its predecessor, Jak 3 was influenced by another Rockstar game, Smuggler's Run, in which the player controls a smuggler who has a bunch of dune buggies and rally cars at his disposal. Naughty Dog certainly liked borrowing ideas from other games, whilst putting their own spin on it. With Jak 3, the series was yet again steered in a new direction, with our heroes embarking on a Mad Max-like adventure out in the desert. At the start of the game, war has erupted in Haven City as the surviving Metalheads and new KG Deathbots clash with the city's defenders. The people turn on Jak, blaming him for the war on account of his dark eco powers and ties with the late crime lord Crew, who allowed Metalheads to breach the walls and rampage through the streets. Jak is banished to the wasteland at the hands of the corrupt Count Vega, despite his friends' protests. He's soon found by Deimos, the ruler of Spargus, a refuge city located on the wasteland's northern coast. To pay back his life debt, Jak must prove his worth or be cast out into the desert as if he was never found. During this time, Jak briefly slips back into his old ways. When his friends beg him to return, he refuses due to his anger at being exiled and is content to leave Haven City to its fate. Jak similarly gets off to a rough start with Deimos, who is cold towards him. However, as he gradually proves himself, he earns the hardened war chief's respect. Eventually, Deimos opens up to Jak, sharing many aspects of his past, including the loss of his child and his former position as Haven City's ruler. Upon seeing firsthand Deimos' qualities as a leader, as well as his unquestionable loyalty to Spargus and its citizens, Deimos gains Jak's trust completely, and our protagonist learns valuable lessons from the king before it all ends in tragedy.
Deimos! Not bad driving, kid. It was a good fight. And a good day to die. I'm very proud to have been by your side in the end. This world is not yet out of heroes.
We did well together. Don't move, Al.
Please, promise me one thing. Promise me you'll find my son, Mar. You'll know him when you see this. He's wearing an amulet just like it. A symbol of our lineage with the great House of Mar. Save the people, Jak. They need you.
Father.
Yes, you were that child. I took you from Deimos, hoping to harness your eco powers for my experiments. Then I lost you to the underground. You seem upset. Did I tell you too late? You were the son of the great warrior Damus. Oh, and he never knew. How delightful. Thank you for opening the door to the Precursors. Don't worry, I'll be back to put you out of your misery.
After him, Jak!
You're willing to go down there? Without a fuss this time.
Yeah, well, don't get used to it. It's just that nobody hurts my best friend and lives to brag about it. Let's get him!
Unfortunately, Jak and Daxter never recognised the familial bond they shared. As a child, Jak was too young and separated from his father for a long stretch of time to remember him, and Daxter couldn't recognise his adult son. It's only after Daxter's death that Jak learns the truth. In my opinion, the trilogy is a tale which depicts the classic journey of a boy becoming a man. Maturity can come at any age in a person's life. In the Precursor legacy, Jak was a carefree lad, discovering the world and finding joy through travel and adventure. In the next installment, he was forced to transform into an adult by a powerful and traumatic experience. An experience he will no doubt remember for the rest of his life. During the events of the third game, he learns to accept what happened to him and mellows out. His father teaches him the value of leadership and trusting others, while the Precursors help balance the dark eco inside of him by countering it with light eco. These acts help Jak regain some of the kindness from his youth. It's clear the death of his father and learning of his true lineage had a profound impact on him. From the end of Jak 3 onwards, he's in tune with his emotions. He's calmer, less prone to anger, and smiles more. Following the release of Jak 3, Naughty Dog had one more Jak and Daxter game to offer. Before moving on to PlayStation 3 and working on their Uncharted series, they made Jak X, a racing game that differs significantly from previous installments. The company wanted to expand on the vehicle aspects of Jak 3, but chose to do so while focusing strictly on arcade racing rather than traditional action-adventure gameplay. The plot once again followed protagonist Jak and his allies, who are poisoned and forced to partake in deadly combat racing to obtain an antidote. While the game received favourable reviews, by this stage, Naughty Dog were ready to move on to realistic worlds and characters for the PS3. Sadly, after this, Jak would be passed down and taken up by other developers, Ready at Dawn and High Impact Games. Ready at Dawn would create a prequel featuring Daxter, which is set between Jak 1 and 2, whereas High Impact Games would go on to spawn a sequel called Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier. This last installment wasn't well received by fans. In fact, the game just doesn't feel essential to the overall plot. It certainly didn't live up to the high standards set by Naughty Dog, and most fans agree that it was let down by its dull environments, stiff player movement, shoddy camera, and weak narrative. What's more, the characters feel off. Jak isn't Jak in this game. His tone, style, and personality are completely different. I get that he underwent character development and is meant to be laid back and relaxed after the events of Jak 3, but here he's just dull and not very interesting. He's supposed to be a witty, badass dude known for spitting wisecracks. This really makes me appreciate how Naughty Dog handled Jak's characterization in Jak X. They knew their protagonist inside and out, and made sure to retain his core elements.
You have a habit of leaving people to die, don't you? You get used to it.
There's so much more I would like to go into, especially the ambiguous situation regarding Jak's true identity. At the end of the third game, it's implied Jak is his own ancestor, the famous hero Ma that founded Haven City. While I'd love to dive into that and all it might entail, that's something which may need to be left for another video. Looking back, I'll always remember the Jak and Daxter games fondly. Was the original trilogy perfect? No, but those games were a hell of a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this character study, consider giving this video a like and leaving a comment. I intend to do more videos like this for other iconic characters from the PS1 and PS2 era, so look out for those if you're interested. Thank you all for watching.